Hello, 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 and welcome to Stronger by Community. This is season 4, episode 3. I am so freaking excited for um, today's guest. We are not only is she just an amazing human, but the topic is so bomb, and I wish that I had the information that we are about to talk to you about when I first started my business. So, I'm gonna bring on Lexi. Um, let's let this be an engaging as fuck interview. Okay, excuse my language. Let's let this be engaging. Drop your questions, drop your comments, drop your breakthroughs in the comments, and let's give Lexi a warm welcome. Let's bring her on. Okay, hold on. Technical difficulties. Hi! Hello!
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited that we finally made this work.
Yes,
Um,
me too.
it's gonna be so much fun.
Yes,
Okay, so welcome to Stronger by Community. I'm so excited to have you here. Why don't you introduce yourself and then we will jump into all the things.
yes. Okay, hi. Hello, hi, I'm Lexi. I'm a business mentor. I love everything to do with business, sales, marketing, showing up. And I'm so excited about the topic we're covering today, which is about embodying confidence, showing up with certainty, selling with confidence. It's such a big part of my journey and something we initially connected on was our journey
Exactly.
confidence and showing up powerfully. And there's so much that we're going to cover, so I'm so excited. There's so many little pieces. I'm sure we'll cover like imposter syndrome or creating with that certainty fire. But I'm excited to just go ahead and get started. But yeah, that's what I do.
Hell yeah. So I have to ask because I know for me, like, when I first started online, I was not confident at all. Like, if you talked to me 7 months ago, you would be like, oh my God, is this the same girl? Like, what? So I have to ask, have you always had like this energy and this confidence, or is this something that came through over time?
So I have always felt confident in myself as a person, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
always have confidence in business. So I found that really
Okay.
parallel. So when I first started, I had a marketing background and experience. So I had experience. I had been certified as a coach. So I had
Right.
what are things we think we need to have, right? But I still struggled with a lot of imposter syndrome, self doubt. I would place a lot of confidence on external metrics. So like if I got like 3 views on my stories, I would spiral out. I'd be like, oh my god, no one's listening to me. I need to talk less. I need to edit how I'm showing up, or I would just get really embarrassed, like very cringy, because I also my business page was my personal. So I kind of
Right.
shifted from that like this is just for fun to I'm selling now. So there was a lot of like stories coming through for that. But I would say like the shift really happened when I started actually prioritizing mindset and confidence, where it wasn't coming from a sense of there was more sales or
Right.
I had things like in business that made me more credible. It was just how I saw myself. It was that identity shift and change in how I showed
Right.
up. So it resonate with you, right? Like I was someone that constantly doubted myself. I was overthinking my posts. I went live
Right.
once and I forgot what I was gonna say and I stopped going live because I was like, I'm just so
Ah!
embarrassed. I can't recover. And it was like I think it has 7 views, but I was like, that's the most I've ever had. It was just a whole
Oh
thing.
my God.
So I totally resonate with that.
Oh my God. Like, you just touched on so much stuff, and I'm so excited to unpack all of it. Um, but I think the first thing that I want to unpack is you mentioned that do you still use this as like a personal profile, or do you have a separate profile?
So my business account is still a business account, but what I started
Right.
doing is my personal branding is like that's just Lexi. Like I'll talk about tacos or about my boyfriend or
Right.
about random things. And it's nice to have that balance where it's like it gets to be your personal like branding and stories, but you're creating value and you're selling services. So
Exactly.
it's that mixed blend where it's now it's just purely business. Like I don't think anyone I followed from college or high school still follows me. Like it's just purely business.
Right.
But it's been a
Right.
shift from that.
Right, yeah. I mean, for me, like, I used to have a personal account, that I never used. And then I had a business account because I thought that I, like, if I'm gonna have a business, I have to be super buttoned up and like super like, oh, like I can't talk about that. And I'd love to hear like your take on like all the rules that we tend to tell ourselves, because the truth of the matter is, like you said, like there's a lesson in like all the things that we're doing. Like I love that you're talking about your boyfriend. I love that you're talking about tacos. Like that's such a freaking vibe.
Thank you. And I love that you bring that up, especially with like the rules we subscribe to, or like the button up version of ourselves. That's something that just really touches home, especially because it was like I came from the marketing world of like hyper buttoned up campaign manager, like agent,
Right,
corporate. Like I need to be professional. Let me get all my branding photos done. I have to be this certain way. I have to show up
right,
this way. Like um being without a filter wasn't the vibe. Like it was just so much like filtering either in words or in my
right,
presence, right? And so like even you are saying like the F word, right? Like I just say F bombs all the time in my content. And I
right,
started thinking like I can't say that. What are people gonna think? Or what if I come across as unprofessional? And I think we start off because one of the first things we learn, right, as business owners and selling online is authority, building authority,
right,
credibility, and we think that that means we have to look or sound a certain way. And something
right,
when it comes to confidence, right, and showing confidence in your content is that you're not subscribing to what authority is supposed to look like. Your authority comes
right.
within, right? So like you're feeling more confident with how you're sharing that.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I love that you touched on like the F-bomb, because like one of my clients actually, because I was asking my clients, like, when you think of me, when you think of my brand, what words come to mind? And this is so bad. She goes, fuck. And I was like,
I love that. I
I
love that.
was like, I love that for me. I love that so much. She's like, I love that you're unfiltered. I love that like you just when you're really passionate about something, sometimes there's no other word.
Yeah.
Sometimes like, and like for the longest time I was like so afraid to show that side of me, like, and it was so hard to talk like passionately and openly because I was so worried that I was gonna just drop an F-bomb, but sometimes it's the only word.
Yeah, I can still relate to that too. It's like the moments where you're re-recording your story because you said a cuss word and you're like, oh, and I gotta re-say it, and that enthusiasm and fire isn't as potent because we've edited
Exactly.
the form of it, right? So totally agree.
Absolutely. So I think that another thing that you touched on too is like, you have to dress a certain way and like you have to speak a certain way, but I think that by having those rules, it kind of undermines like our confidence in what we know. It kind of undermines our authority. Because if you're constantly over editing yourself and you're constantly worrying like, oh, these people are going to be offended, then you're not really like able to show up because you're so on edge. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, okay. So two things coming through for me. The first being that like being on edge, right? Of like hyper filtering or hyper holding back on what you have to say because what others are gonna think. I think because there's rules that we subscribe to, and I mean, of course, it's coming from a place of love, right? You don't. You're maybe newer at this, or you're trying something new, and it's just like, what's the safest way to go about this, right? And so we kind of like put ourselves in a
Right.
box, and so we look to others for like inspiration, or what's the rule? Am I allowed to say this? Am I allowed to do this? And so I actually talked about this as the other thing on stories today, but certainty versus convincing energy. And so
Hmm.
when you're filtering yourself, when you're trying to say things to get to the sale or to say things in a certain way or come off a certain way, that's convincing energy, right? That's when we start to slip into that hyper editing mode versus when you're confident with that energy, you're coming through with like, this is what I have to say and share. And it's okay if you don't like that. It's okay. Like I'm holding space for duality, your truth, my truth, and I get to just express that. And I think what's so powerful in all of this is when you give yourself the permission to say what you need to without worrying about what this is going to sound like, who it's going to piss off, or anything else. Like that's when you can really tap into energy that's yours, uniquely your own, right? You're not
Exactly.
are doing, your voice isn't being like shunned or dimmed because you're looking to someone else. Like people can really gravitate towards you because you're unfiltered and just expressing yourself naturally as you would, which I would argue when you're supporting your clients, they're going to see that. They're going to hear your
Right.
like words. They're going to see how you interact with them. So when you put this filter on what you think you need to sound and look like, you either end up attracting people who aren't the right fit, or
Right.
they're like completely surprised or like pleasantly surprised. But imagine how much more you would be able to attract your clients to you or have content that's really confident when you are allowing
Right.
to be that version of yourself, like who you are, truthfully.
Exactly. I love it. I love how you phrase that. I think that, yeah, a lot of us have those stories that like, oh my God, I have to be this way, and you're gonna attract the people that you're gonna attract. And like, if you're putting on this show, I think if you're putting on this show of like, I'm this super buttoned up person when I'm selling, then like you said, you're either going to attract people that are super buttoned up and are in for like a total freaking shock when they work with you. um, or, you're gonna feel like you're walking on eggshells when you are actually servicing your clients. And you don't want that. It's not good for you, it's not good for them. And so I think that it's really important to just trust yourself and trust that whatever way the message that you're portraying comes out, as long as it's like genuinely coming from your heart and coming from like your experience, it's perfect. It's I'm trying not to drop F-bombs right now, but it's hard.
Do it.
Um,
Drop
um, but yeah, like don't filter yourself, don't censor yourself. Like just allow whatever is coming out of your mouth to be exactly what people need to hear, because it is. It really is. Sometimes other people just want to hear your F-bombs. Like, I love it when I'm watching somebody on live or watching a coach and they just like totally go on a rant. Like I find that inspiring. Um, so I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about content.
Yeah.
So reels, post, live, like whatever is your jam. What is the best way to convey, like, I guess what's the best way to convey that you are super confident in what you're saying? I know that's a little bit of a loaded question, but I want to hear what you have to say first, and then we'll kind of unpack it.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Hello.
Hello.
Comments. Yes. Okay. So conveying confidence, right, in what you're saying, I truly feel goes back to your certainty in what you're saying and sharing. And there's a couple ways to go about this, but in terms of like the energetics and what you're infusing into your content, it's noticing when you're not confident as you're creating. Like as you're riffing, as you're creating, and you start to hear that voice that's like, oh, I need to say it this way, or I need to do that. Like, let your first response be the content, not editing, not hyper filtering.
Right.
Obviously, be intentional with what you're saying. Like, I'm sure, like in terms of strategy or strategic shifts, right?
Right.
In terms of the energy, when you want to convey that confidence, it's allowing yourself to say the first response. Because when you start to hyper edit and when you start to go into fixing mode or you start to try and force content to look and sound a certain way, that's when the hesitation comes through in your content. That's where you start adding in things that don't necessarily relate to the core part of what you wanted to say, right? Like your first intention. What is your first
Right.
intention with this post? Allow yourself to say that, and that's it. You don't need to add fluff, add more things to it, or shift it around or edit it. And that's
Right.
the confidence. It's just quick, simple, to the point. This is my intention. Here's what I need to say. And you allow yourself to say it. Because when you start
Ooh.
the editing mode, right? Or when you start to filter what you need to say, that's when our content starts to turn into like pages, or we end up being on lives for 2 hours trying to get our point across, and it's like
Right.
permission to say what you need to without adding to it, and that's going to convey so much more confidence than a simple statement would. I also always like to say, in terms of like strategic shift, just to give that like clarity, it's
Right.
like, what's your claim to fame? What am I so amazing at? What am I the shit at? Like, why am I speaking right now? Like, what is that powerful intention? And you get to say that. I am so
Right.
freaking good at this. My clients see this results. Like, and that confident claim to that energy creates that confidence as well, right? It's not a matter of, I need to say it this way or I need to be an authority in this way, but what are you allowing yourself to say? And just allow yourself to do that and leave it as is, right? So I think
Ooh.
that is, that's one of the most spicy things right? Whether it's an opinion, whether it's a client result, whether it's your own story, what is that first intention, and allow yourself the permission to say it unedited, unfiltered, and roll with it there and leave it as is.
I love that. I love that. I actually just did a webinar. I feel like you're gonna love this. I did a webinar last week. It was called Camera Shy to Camera Ready. And I took a major risk. I did not prepare notes for that webinar.
Yeah.
It was terrifying, but it was so freaking powerful. I spoke from the heart, like, and I gave them like hardcore strategy just straight from my experience, because I truly believe that, like, if you were given the opportunity to get on camera or to share content and other people are reading it, it means that you are the fucking expert. You are the authority already.
Yes.
So trust yourself to just say it. If you need to start Googling shit, if you need to start making all these like bullet points, you're already not trusting yourself to say what you need to say.
Exactly.
Obviously, you know, if you're referring to numbers and figures, you're gonna want to have some notes. But I would love to hear your thoughts on like just hopping on live and not having notes.
Yes. Okay. This is actually speaking to my soul right now, especially like I just wanted to say that's a huge win. Celebrating you so hard for that. And
Yay.
I've noticed that myself is when I start to have a structure for lives or a structure for like curriculum or something, right? That's when I tend to hyperfixate on the bullet point instead of just allowing it to naturally riff and come through. And I actually did a program where I just riffed. I didn't have anything really prepared. And it was so scary too to have that. But it was a 7-day program. So to do that for 7 days straight, I came with such a fiery confidence that by the end of it, I was like, I don't even need something to like reflect on, look back to. And so I found too that whenever I've had bullet points, whenever I've had a structure, that's when I feel pressure. Don't forget to say that. Don't forget to add this in. Or does this make sense? Recap this here. Like it's just, it kind of like filters out and fluffs out the actual structure and message what you're trying to say. And then when you allow yourself to riff from the heart, there's no getting it wrong because there is nothing prepared, right? It's just a matter of what is your intention with what you're sharing with that space. So whether it's a live, whether it's a coaching program that you're doing live, like anything like that. And something I found really powerful as well, and what allowed me to stop like unsending Voxer notes or overthinking when I was coaching, was I don't prep for coaching, right? Your client comes to you, you support them in the moment, whether that's in Voxer or on, however you're supporting your client. So if you're not what you would say to your clients, why are you prepping your content? Like, what are you?
Thank you.
Yeah, see, what are you trying to edit and hyperfixate in your content that you wouldn't do with your clients? And so that kind of creates a mismatch, an energetic mismatch, right? With how you're showing up in your content and how you're supporting your clients. And so you want this to be the same. You want the congruence between the two. And so when you're showing up with your clients and supporting your clients, you're not prepping what you have to say. You shouldn't be doing, or not that you shouldn't be, but it should come very naturally for you to do that same thing in your content, and giving yourself the permission to think of it as like, I wouldn't fix or hyper edit what I'm saying here. I get to share that with my community because odds are is going to be your client. So eventually there is going to be no filter and just straight up coaching, right? And so, or service you're providing. But that expertise, the strategic shifts, the coaching, the service that you're providing, that gets to be the same throughout.
Right, absolutely. And like one of the things that I always like try to remind myself too is like as you were saying, this is kind of coming up for me, like you said, when I'm coaching my clients, when I'm talking to my friends, when I'm like at like a meeting for work, like I work in a field where I'm one of the only females and I'm half the age of most of the people that I work with. And I have never once prepared a note for any meetings that I'm in. And we work with multi-millions of dollars. So like if I'm showing up to meetings in a very stiff industry without notes and killing it, and I'm showing up for my clients in Voxer and giving them incredible heartfelt advice, then why the hell would I bring on this facade of this person that I'm not when I'm trying to bring in my type of client? Like, there's a disconnect there. And I think that like a lot of us try to tell ourselves like it comes from imposter syndrome, I think. And I think a lot of us try to tell ourselves, like, I'm not going to be good enough at this. Like, all these people have all of these amazing things that they're doing and talking about. I need to have all the bells and whistles. When really, like, that's not what sells,
Yeah.
right? That's not what's going to sell you. What sells is your confidence and your certainty in what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on like bells and whistles. Like what do you think about when people have a million slideshows or all these like formal things?
Yeah. So truthfully, I think it's a matter of validation and, as you said, the imposter syndrome or even confidence. Because when you look at the other areas and where you're showing up, right, with your clients or maybe with your friends, you get that immediate response and validation. With sales, it's not always as like just cut and dry that same day, let's say, right? And so sometimes it's
Right,
a bit of a waiting period. And I think that's why with content specifically, because content is the vehicle to sales, when we're not seeing those immediate sales or those immediate inquiries, we're in our heads a little bit more, right? So we start
right,
like, okay, maybe I should say it this way, or maybe I should do it this way, and it's because it's leading to that result. When we support our clients are like, oh my god, you're so right, or your friends are like, oh my god, yes,
right,
totally, I resonate with that. Like, you get that immediate validation, and you might get some
right,
with your content, right? But it's like the thing that you're looking for, the end result, you're putting so much of your time and energy and effort in, and when you don't see that initial like response or feedback, then we start to get in our head. So I think truthfully, right, it always comes, I always say it always comes back from within. So, bells and whistles in your content or in um your curriculum, things like that, it's looking at what's necessary too, because you don't
right,
want to come at it from a perspective of like, well, I need to do this or I have to do this, right, because of that external validation that we're getting as a result, but rather what is actually necessary and how can I give myself that permission to show up bare, raw, vulnerable, without a script, without like all the bells and whistles, and knowing that that's enough. And I think, going back to
right,
confidence, right, is knowing that you as you are more than enough to support your clients, to call in clients, and recognizing
right,
and being able to validate and hold yourself through this, especially when it comes to your curriculum or supporting clients. Like, it's not necessary. Like, you as you are already the embodied result that your clients are looking for. And when you can anchor that in,
absolutely.
you don't need a script to say things. You don't need to hyper analyze what you're going to create for your content. It's just a matter of showing up. You are the content, right? Like, you are the result they're looking for. You wouldn't need to say or shift or sway or convince. It's just a matter of you showing up truthfully.
Right, absolutely. And like something that's coming up for me too as you're talking is, you know, you are like we all are an expert at something. That's why our clients hire us, right? That's why people come into our space, want to work with us, love our content. If you just can like dive into that and trust that everything that your clients need is going to come out. Sometimes it's going to be really messy as you're creating, and that's fine. Um, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on messy action because I know that one of the things that held me back for the longest time is perfectionism. And I think that
Yeah.
the opposite of that and the way out of that is messy action.
Mm-hmm.
Just letting it be a hot ass mess and letting that be fine. Like I've had more clients come into my space and be really freaking excited to work with me as I started to embrace messy action. So I'd love to hear your experience with that.
Yes. Oh my god, I love messy action. And actually, I went through that too, where it's like I was so buttoned up and so perfectionistic that, one, I wasn't sharing the actual thoughts in lifetime. I'd wait for the perfect moment, or I'd wait because I promoted too many times today, right? Like, all of that. When you allow yourself messy action, what you're really doing is allowing yourself to show up as you are, like, mess or not, right? And so you get that first response of what you actually meant to say. You're not hyper fixating or hyper editing. You don't give yourself time to do that. You're just,
Right,
way. Same thing with like showing up, right? Showing up in your natural expression, in the way that you are talking naturally without having to refilm or re-edit. People get your point across. They feel your energy, and nothing feels weird or unattainable. Like, it's relatable in the way that you
right,
show up. And so what I love about messy action is that also, like, there is no such thing as perfection. And truthfully, like, the more you do something or the more you experience something because of the messy action that you've taken, you're now building up that compound action for it to actually lead somewhere where you're not holding, like, I'm sure we're all guilty of holding 50 plus ideas in our notes app because we're like, well, I want to say this a certain way, or I'm going to post this on a certain time. And it's like, allow yourself to share that with your community and allow yourself to
Right.
be so edited. And something that, at least for me, when I was going through this, was I would like try to say things in a certain way, or I would extend all my messaging into one perfect post, and it's like that
Right.
my point across, right? And so once I started embracing messy, it started being more specific. It started being more fun. It started being more
Right.
energy instead of this like, I have to have my reel cover be this way, and it has to have this perfect picture and this perfect branding, and I have to get this point across and speak to the problem here. It's just like, it's so stuffy that people
Right.
don't feel the emotion, right? And so much of what we do is energetic work. One, two is selling and sales. People buy when they feel emotion, and if they're not feeling
Right.
anything from you, if they're not feeling moved by your content or even moved by you personally, like, they'll feel inspired. They'll feel like, wow, this
Right.
is really great, but they're not feeling that pull that's actually going to pull them towards working with you because they're like, this is great, but it's not making them feel something that would actually want them to take action to work with you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nobody's hiring you because your reel covers are awesome.
Right,
Like,
exactly. The perfect transition is not what's important.
I mean, I'm guilty. Even this morning, I was like, "Oh, I hate that reel cover. Like, it was cutting off my eyeballs. I gotta fix it." Like, because I can never get the proportions right. But you know what? Whatever. I let it be messy. Sometimes I fix it if it's like really bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like literally nobody cares. Nobody freaking gives a shit about how your content looks. It's nice when you start to like get a feel for like how you're gonna create and you have like a general idea for your grid. Like I love my grid. It's so pretty. But it's so messy, but it's so pretty. Um, but like I'm so over the days in Canva trying to like make everything look like perfectly aligned and centered. Like that's not me. Uh, and like my content is so much better. And like now it takes me 25 minutes to put a whole post together, whereas in the past it used to take me 4 hours, 5 hours.
I can relate to that. Yeah, and it's funny because even the like perfect centered graphics and whatnot, when I look back at when I did that, it was not good. Like, the
Right.
designs
Oh
were
my
not even that
God.
great. I was like, this is my magnum opus. Like, I was in there for
Yeah.
like 3 hours, and I've archived like half of them because they didn't even actually relate to my services, right? Like, that's how I
Right.
started. So it's like, when you pay attention to what really matters, and as you said, right, like, taking that messy action allows you to do more and more efficiently without having to quote unquote actually do more. You just have more time, more space
Right.
to create more, to share more, to really be in that energy of like, I have all this overflow instead of let me just post this one thing that's perfect, and then all
Right.
the other ideas or all the other areas that I could be working on or showing up in aren't there because I'm spending so much time just fixating on this one thing. And the truth is,
Right.
even if you look at buyer behavior, right, no one is looking at one post and they're like, that's it. It's usually like a combination of posts, or they see something within one post, but the whole picture is necessary, and you're giving them
Right.
opportunities to feel into you as a service provider.
Right. Like I think now, like now that I understand finally, like content is literally like a window into working with you. That's it.
Yeah.
What do you want people to see when they look in your window? Hopefully no one's looking in your window. um I like as I was saying that I'm like, oh God, this is so I okay. My mind needs to get out of the gutter right now. All right, so it's already six. It's already, well, I guess 3 o'clock for you. I cannot believe it's been a half an hour.
Oh, this was so much fun.
Your girl is so hungry, so I gotta get home before I bite someone's head off. Um, so any last thoughts? And then I want to just ask you real quick, like how people can work with you, how they can connect with you. So what are like your final thoughts on conveying confidence in your content? That's a tongue twister.
Okay. So I would say my final thought, if you take anything away from this live, is that the more you trust yourself and the more certain you are in yourself, the more others will be well. When you allow yourself to say what you need to say, when you don't question what you have to say, when you share from the heart, people can feel that. And there's no strategy that's going to convey that, right? You could do all the right things, you could say all the right things, but your energy and intention is what sells, truthfully. So when you have that confidence in yourself first, that's when everything else will click into place. The strategy,
Right.
type of content, how you show up. But first, it comes back down to that core belief of confidence in yourself, your offers, and your audience. So,
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so Lexi, how can people work with you? How can they connect with you? I like literally, guys, I don't even know how we became friends, but like we just did. Her content is fire. I'm obsessed with it. You have to go follow her. But how can people work with you?
thank you. Yes, I actually have a one-on-one spot open right now. You can go ahead and DM me at Coaching with Lexi to figure out, where you're currently coming in from. My specialty specifically is helping you create more cash income into your monthly revenue, which I freaking love, fully obsessed with showing up with confident content and sales. So that is the vibe. And so if you want to work together, you can go ahead and send me a DM. We can figure out the best offer for you. But yeah, and if you're curious about my content, you can go ahead and subscribe to my email list within my link in my bio. So thank you. I'm so excited.
Awesome. This is so much fun. We have to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Awesome. All right. Well, have an amazing evening and afternoon. I don't even know what time it is anymore.
Thank you. Go get food. I will talk to you soon, okay?
All right. Cool. Bye.